Our former Statistician-General and Economic Modeling Academy Co-Director, Dr. Pali Lehohla, joins us tonight. So, Dr. Lehohla, you can hear both the Statistician-General and the President quite buoyant, on the occasion of the release of these latest figures. Your initial impressions of where we are?
You mean about the results
yes,
or what they say? Well, there are two levels at which I want to respond to the issue. The one central message has been about the mighty organization that continues to be governed ethically, professionally, and does its job well, despite the difficulties that might be there. I'm very proud of this organization and the team that helped me to work with it. And when I departed, it has not made one mistake in the 6 years of my successor. So when succession succeeds, then you know that there is succession and there is legacy. So I'm very happy about that. The second is that under very difficult and trying situations, we've had a team that actually became bold and went into field despite the difficulties. Obviously, the undercount is quite very high at 29%. But despite that, the estimates, the robustness of the post-enumeration survey gives us comfort that the numbers are usable and used, and the Council has endorsed that after a number of experts, not only in South Africa, but from across the world, who came to work with our team here. But it is not those experts, yes, those experts are important, but it is the team, the depth of competence that is in this institution that I think it is a living example of what institution building should be in the country. And the rebuilding must come and learn from State SA. And that you never leave leadership to chance, both technical leadership and other forms of leadership. But we actually deepened the technical leadership in the organization. And actually the organization was invited, and it's very heartening to see those people that have seen at least 4 censuses. They are competent, not only in the census, but in the quality of the data that this country so desires. And this organization, as the President says, it is an organization that is reliable and that has to be respected and should continue that way. So those are my two important observations. When it comes to the numbers, of course, there are trends that are some that are worrying, some that are not so worrying. Of course, the question of electricity and access to electricity is a big problem. Water also is a big problem. There are reversals in access to water. The population has grown very mildly from up to 62 million. That rate of growth it's okay. It shouldn't worry us. But what is more worrying is the demographic dividend, the potential that we are losing. If you look at the age structure, the lower part of the structure has shrunk so rapidly. So the number of children born are too few to provide the dividend that we should hope for. Those that have already been born, that are 15 to some 30 years, have already been wasted because they have not acquired the skills that are required. So in actual sense, there is a serious gap in skills, and the smaller number when you compare 1996 to 2022, or in fact 2001 to 2022, you can see the serious shift in the age pyramid of our population. And the fact that those people have gone through time without actually acquiring the skills is a serious disservice, and it's going to haunt us terribly.
I guess in many ways, Dr. Lehohla, because on the one hand, there's quite a lot of celebration around the fact that we have the highest number of young people going through matric than ever before. But as you're saying, when we look closely at that data and we look at the dropout rates, who exactly is making it through to university, we of course see that the black demographic, unfortunately, falls below the radar. And you've got millions of young people that are dropping out. Perhaps the question now is not really just to say, yes, access has been created, which is great, but now how do we improve the quality of that access to ensure that we're giving more young people the opportunity to go even beyond high school?
Well, the percentage, 7 to 12% in 30 years, or from 1996 or 2001, is too small a growth rate. It's less than 1% per year. And that is disastrous by its in its own self. And then the fewer numbers that actually proceed to university and who don't actually perform that well at the university. If you look at the progression ratios amongst the blacks, when we started measuring this, for every one person who is black and completes his degree, 1.2 whites within their, as a proportion in their own race completed in the 80s. In 2015, for every one black that completes, there was 6 whites that completed. Not because blacks are stupid, or rather whites are performing better, but because blacks are performing worse. But not because they are stupid, but because of the funding model, because of the facilities, because of the things that are not going right at the family level, at all levels of society. And that means we are wasting the population completely. And that is showing in the results of the census. And I think when we run that progression, those progression ratios, once the individual record data is available, we'll start seeing what trend is emerging. Is it worsening or is it? But by all counts, it can't get better. It's not getting better. It at least will. It looks, from my perspective, and when I look at the raw numbers here now, that it might be getting worse.
Dr. Lehohla, we received these census, of course, at a time where political parties are getting ready to really go into, full campaign mode if they haven't already started. And one of the big issues, particularly when we look at the conversations that South Africans are having amongst themselves, is around undocumented migrants that are in the country. These figures that have been released, 2.4 international migrants being documented, their status not necessarily being questioned, but we know that they're here and we know what they have said about where they come from. What do you make of that aspect of the data?
Well, that aspect of the data is very interesting, that the number of migrants have just doubled to 2.4 million compared to 1.2 million at an earlier period. It means that that is accelerating, and it's to be expected because South Africa is an area of good a better destination compared to other places where people come from. But what is important to observe in that is surely if we were better in terms of providing for education, and people come and look for opportunities in education, then we are investing in investable resources for ourselves going forward. But because we are so poorly organized in terms of education, research and everything, that stream of migration creates, in many instances, as we have seen, contestation for resources, a matter that should not be a matter at all, if only we were better organized. And this doesn't go only for South Africa, but it's a challenge for the continent, that we really have to get our political system in order that this continent that is so rich can also be rich in terms of its people, not only the potential that is there in the ground and exploited by others. So doubling that number doubling from the earlier period, it's something that has to be watched and watched carefully. I'm not saying that there should be restrictions or anything, but I think South Africa must be a good destination, an attractive destination, because it has better human resources. But unfortunately, it doesn't. And the numbers in the census attest to that. And the numbers in the service that we have been run by this organization, that mighty organization, also attest to that.
All right. We'll leave it there for tonight. Dr. Lehohla, thank you so much for your insights.